Boom! What is up, familia? Dayspring here with a very major headline, and I can't believe not many people are talking about it. For those of you who do not know, I worked in publishing from 2006 all the way through 2019, from when I was 22 all the way till I was about 33, 34. And that's when I began my auctioneering career full time. I started off at Marvel Comics. I was in their custom publishing division, and my job was basically to help negotiate and oversee the creation of comics for like Amtrak or for Office Max, because those companies would come to us and they would say things like, hey, we want to have a comic book promoting Office Max and we want the Spider-Man villains in there. Or for Amtrak, we want the Fantastic Four and we want to showcase how cool our trains are. I also did a lot of outreach to schools, and we did a lot of variant covers specifically for Phoenix Warsong with Tyler Kirkham. So, it was a really great job. It taught me so much about the publishing industry, and especially IP and how IP is licensed out to other companies and can be incredibly successful in generating revenue and visibility for all parties involved. So from there, I ended up working at the Hachette Book Group during the Stephanie Meyer Twilight era. And I got to work with like Nicholas Sparks, David Sedaris, Keith Richards, another Sedaris, Amy Sedaris. I love my Sedarises. And then from there, I went to HarperCollins, where I was in their editorial division, and I had a hand in marketing and sales. And then, of course, I went to work as an auctioneer full time, and that's where I've been the last 8 years. So I know the publishing scene in New York. My DNA is publishing. I have so many friends who work in books, who get books published. And I got to tell you, this headline is terrifying, because New York, whether you like it or not, New York is the epicenter of publishing. And I was actually up for a job at DC Comics back, in like 2011, 2010, something like that. And the position was eliminated as it was being offered to me, because they were moving from New York to the West Coast, to Burbank. So to whatever degree of success do you see DC publishing? I mean, right now, obviously, DC's riding a high with Absolute Batman. However, Absolute Batman is just one comic, and it is carrying the mainstream superhero comic book genre on its back. I mean, Absolute Batman, and I think Matt Fraction's Batman, they're very good comics, but those are just two comics out of all of the mainstream hero comics we get monthly. And this headline really, really saddens me, and we can break it down. We can go through everything together as a familia. But before we begin, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Power of X-Men. Make sure to follow us at Instagram at Power of X-Men. That's where we are most active. And even though we do YouTube videos like this sporadically, we also have the podcast arm of Power of X-Men, and that's where we break down everything. And I think sometimes the podcast episodes feed out here. So, just wherever you get your podcasts, give us a listen. So let's dive into this headline. I asked a few insiders, some sources, their feels on this. It's really funny to see how people have reacted to this news. West Coast versus East Coast. East Coast, everyone's up in arms, speculating, talking, giving some nice tea. And then on the West Coast, we were like, because LA, listen, I love LA. I grew up with LA being that Gen X culture. I always wanted to live in LA, but LA is not a publishing town. It's Tinseltown. It's a town of actors and movie magic. Whereas New York is a publishing town. So Marvel leaving, it just makes me so sad, very sad. Okay, let's dive into this headline. Marvel Comics to leave New York and move staffers to LA as part of major overhaul exclusive. So this is an exclusive to The Hollywood Reporter. The Disney-owned publisher is also getting a new editor-in-chief as 100 employees are being asked to relocate to Burbank by next July. So let me stop right here right now, because I saw a comment that came in on Power of X-Men where someone said, this is great. We have so many comic book people out here in LA. Move those jobs over here. This is not comic book writer, comic book artist. This is everyday publishing jobs, because the artists and the writers, those have always been freelanced, right? This is the everyday jobs of what makes up a publishing house, anywhere from legal to sales and marketing to editorial to the art department. Those are the jobs that are being affected here. You know, it's really hard to tell what's the state of the publishing industry post AI, essentially post AI, but you know, typically in-house, you have someone who looks at layout and design, who looks how to format comics for a digital platform, to the editors who are editing the scripts line by line, who are coordinating with production, sending things off to the printer, getting back samples. Those are the kinds of everyday jobs that constitute a publishing house that are being affected by this. Again, the talent, like a writer and an artist, we've seen this at Marvel for decades at this point. Those are freelance all around the world, given the age that we live in with like email and the internet. The relocation was revealed to staff at a town hall Thursday at Marvel's New York office in Midtown. I worked on the Fifth Avenue office. Oh, I love that Fifth Avenue office so much. I believe it was like 5th and like 39, 40, if I remember correctly. I can still identify the building when I walk by, but it's been 20 years and I love that. Where employees were informed that its publishing division will be pulling up stakes and transferring operations to Burbank, California, the current headquarters of Marvel Studios and corporate parent, the Walt Disney Company. Now, the real estate market, specifically the commercial real estate market in New York City is shit right now. And that has been the situation since lockdown. No one has gone back to the office full time. Wait. Allow me to clarify that statement. Yes, some people have gone back to the office full time, but a lot of people are now hybrid, where they can work remotely and also come into the office. Specifically in book publishing, my old contemporaries at HarperCollins, for example, they can come in a couple days a week, and then the rest they can just do it from home. And I know a lot of people who have transitioned fully remote because they live further out in New Jersey or Long Island or Connecticut, and it's not worth the commute anymore in this age of Zoom. I did an event in January for a group of commercial real estate agents, and the ongoing joke was that all of these office spaces are being converted into apartments, and they're soon going to have to be like real estate agents for apartments. I mean, it's really interesting to see how the market has changed, and that commuter culture, I just don't see it anymore. Like, I used to take the subway every morning when I worked in publishing, and you'd be like this, like you couldn't even move. And sometimes you'd have to wait for the next train. A lot of those problems don't exist anymore because people are working remotely. So Disney in Burbank, someone was explaining to me, actually has a lot of open offices on this campus they already own, that they already have building an office space. So it would make sense for them to take that publishing arm and just bring them over to Burbank because they have the real estate, the commercial real estate available. And don't forget, Marvel Studios has gone through a lot of changes too in the last few months. A lot of people were let go. The industry is really taking a hit. The development is accompanied by a changing of the guard at the top. Stephen Wacker, a respected veteran comics editor who has also earned an Emmy nomination for his work in the company's forays in animation, has been named Marvel's new editor-in-chief, replacing outgoing chief C.B. Cebulski, who had steered the division since 2017. Cebulski will remain part of the family, however, as he will be moving to Japan to spearhead the company's push into manga, among other things, as editor Asia Originals. All right. a lot to unpack there, right? Stephen Wacker has a wonderful reputation. Everyone I spoke to today about this article has said the same thing, that Stephen Wacker is a really good person, cares about stories, and has a good eye for what works and what doesn't work. So a lot of people are excited to see him as EIC. I don't know too much about his career. However, the sources I go to, who I speak to on the regular, have all vouched for him. So this can only be a good thing, because I agree that CB Cebulski is just not a good editor-in-chief. I like Axel Alonso, and I don't know why Axel Alonso disappeared one day from Marvel. You know, I have no insight T. I've never investigated it. I'm just saying I like Axel Alonso based off of his editorial work. I liked Axel Alonso quite a bit. I don't know why he left. However, CB Cebulski has paled when compared to him. I actually, when I was interviewing at Marvel, I interviewed with CB, and another woman, I'm forgetting, she has short black curly hair and glasses. This was around 2005, 2006. I think her name was Molly. They were such snobs to me. You know, when you meet people who are a little bit more dorky and nerdy and they're intellectually condescending, that's how they were to me. And I was like a 22-year-old, like moving from Tallahassee, Florida, where I just graduated college, coming to the big city. I had these like huge like eyes. I was looking at people. I think I had adult braces. No, I got adult braces later on, but CB was not nice to me. They definitely, I'll never forget that as I was explaining something in response to what I did, they just kind of looked at each other and they go, okay. And they handed me back my resume. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't, even as naive as I was back then, I knew I didn't get the job. So, you know, not a good dude, and not a good dude from my experience. And, you know, he's left a comment here or there on Power of X-Men, I think a couple months ago, and he was splitting hairs on something. I was like, dude, don't go the Tom Brevoort route of just trolling your fan base. You know, I'm giving you free advertising, you know, whether it's good or bad, right? I'm talking about your IPs here. And I think all I said was like, we're getting a new X-Men relaunch with, what was current one, From the Ashes? No, it's not From the Ashes. Well, yeah, it's From the Ashes, but Shadows of Tomorrow. And he was here like, it's not a relaunch. I was like, dude, I posted this photo. I'm giving you free advertisement. You didn't have to pay for anything. Marvel gives me nothing. That's why we talk very freely about our opinions here. Marvel does not give us anything, because we're true fans and we actually want these characters and these IPs to survive. And, you know, part of that is having a conversation where when you see things, it's not blindly loving every MCU movie or every comic book that's out there. You have to give honest feedback so the company could survive. So the final sentence of this paragraph, CB Cebulski is going to be going to Japan, and he's going to be editor of Asia Originals. First off, you know, manga is really big. I don't know if mainstream superheroes, if that could translate as successfully to manga. Right. For example, I'm really excited for Midnight X-Men by Jonathan Hickman. However, it's an alt world. It's not mainline 616. So, you know, there's that. Two, they have dipped a toe in manga before. I'm only going to speak specifically to the X-Men. They adapted the X-Men animated series back in the day into manga format. Those volumes have been re-released recently. They also did something in the early aughts where they focus on like a new class of mutants, and you had the older X-Men like Iceman and Jean sort of as a revolving, you know, cast of teachers. So they've dipped a toe in manga before, and I really like manga a lot. I've been collecting manga since like 1996. When I went hunting for Sailor Moon Stars Volume 1 before Mix even translated that manga. And I actually have that original Sailor Moon Stars Volume 1 in Japanese, like its first printing. It's one of my crown jewels of a collection. So I love manga. Okay, 100%. I think it is an idea worth pursuing. I do think you need someone who understands the industry very well and how you're going to translate mainstream superheroes into that format. I guess that's why CB Cebulski has to go to Japan, and I guess he's going to be really happy. Akira Yoshida is returning home. For those of you who don't know, and this is something I forgot, and this is something unanimously everyone I spoke to was telling me, that was the alias of CB Cebulski, Akira Yoshida, because back in like mid-aughts, he was pretending to be a Japanese editor. So weird. And now it's like his dream come true. Now he can be himself and be editor of Asia Originals. This is kind of cringe, the way that kind of came out. I'm surprised someone in Marvel's PR team just wouldn't have flagged that. You know what I mean? I'm just so shocked that publicity really wasn't like, hey, maybe since we're giving you this exclusive Hollywood Reporter, let's protect our editor who's going to be spearheading a new initiative. And maybe we just tweak this paragraph a little bit, just being like CB Cebulski will be focusing on manga initiatives instead of saying he's moving to Japan and now he's editor Asia Originals. I mean, the comments coming in about this, and I forgot this was even a headline, to be completely honest with you all. I was like, oh, I vaguely remember this. And then Flink was like, oh, we've talked about this before, like 10 years ago on AIM. I'm like, don't remember it at all. But yeah, so if it was a far more talented editor pushing the manga, I would feel more confident in this initiative. And I don't think Marvel is wrong in doing this initiative, but I just don't think CB Cebulski is your guy. But you know what? I always say this at Power of X-Men, prove me wrong. Both changes are meant to reinvigorate the comic book side of the company, which has been overshadowed in recent years by the success of Marvel's movies. I'm sorry, in what world are the movies better than the comics? Well, wait, hold up. Okay, I'm sorry. I know what I just said out loud. But you know what I mean. Anything after phase 3 has been wobbly at best. You do have your gems, of course, like WandaVision. WandaVision is a perfect example of the continued success of the MCU. However, what I really don't like about this is there should be no competition between a multi-billion-dollar blockbuster that is inspired by a monthly comic. The comic books, yes, are not going to bring in multi-billion dollars. It's not going to get the word of mouth that a summer blockbuster is going to do. However, what the comic book does is it gets a core fan base excited, and that excitement translates into video games, to action figures, and then trade paperbacks. And then from there, it evolves into an MCU project. And those original nerds, myself, original comic book nerds, are like, oh my God, they're adapting this story. And this story came out like 10 years ago, and it is so good, and you have to read it. And we say that to the normies, and the normies then watch the movie. Presumably, if the movie's well done, they love the movie, and then they'll hit up a local comic book store or wherever they get their comic books, and they'll pick up the trade because they like the movie so much. They want to see how it played out in the comic book. So when you say that the Marvel movies have overshadowed the comic books, I think that's such a horrible statement. That's someone who really does not understand. Who is this person who wrote this article? All right, we won't name any names, and I'm not going to be mean. I just listen. That's just I hate that statement. You should always lead with a good comic book. And by the way, one of the things that I think has been a major downfall, this creative slump that they talk about right here in this article regarding the comic books, is because so much of what's happening in the MCU is now meant to influence the comic books. Absolutely not. You got to stop that. Listen, you got away with it with Samuel L. Jackson because Nick Fury in the Ultimate Universe was a man of color, and Nick Fury is an incredible actor, and nothing like the Avengers had been done before in cinema. So of course I get it. You want to translate that into the comic books. However, it's not a one size fits all for every character, for every story, for every situation. The comic books need to do their own thing. They need to have their own identity. That's it. Let them tell good stories. Now, on that part here, I'm going to say, in fairness to the comic books, they have been attempting at, for as bad as Shadows of Tomorrow is, no one can say that they're being directly influenced by the current MCU, with the exception of Miss Marvel being a mutant. However, it's just, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off when I say this. It's just the stories are not good. That's just what it boils down to. You don't have quality talent. The editor's job, and I don't think that it's going to get better when they move to LA, because most writers, most comic book writers, book writers, the kind of talent you want to attract for a publishing initiative, they're based in New York City. And yes, you can spearhead, you can find, and yes, you can go out there and you can find talent everywhere. And of course, you have script writers in LA, but script writing for movies and TVs is fundamentally, it's a different format than writing for a comic book. By the way, everything you write out there has its own format and rules and approach to it, right? Just because you're good at writing essays, I write essays, does not mean you're a good fiction writer, right? I cannot write a short story to save my life, but I can write a good nonfiction essay. Just because you write books does not mean you can write a screenplay. There are some people, of course, who can do both, but not everyone can do both. And that's what really infuriates me about this situation. Anyways, let's continue reading. Marvel movies, and by a creative slump that saw it lose its position as comics market share leader for the first time this century. Again, it's just bad quality writers. That's just what it boils down to. You need writers who are going to come in with a vision that's not only going to impact the weeklies, but also the industry at large. I can't believe we live in a world where I'm not reading the weekly X books. I used to get my X-Men comic books every Wednesday, and I would go to Subway, the sandwich shop, order a foot-long chicken teriyaki, a Dr. Pepper, and 2 macadamia nut cookies, and I would read my weekly stack. And it was pure bliss. It was 1 hour of the week that I dedicated just to me. My phone was on silent, did not pay attention to anything. I haven't done that in years. And they just opened up a Subway at my apartment in Hoboken right across the street. You've lost your market share because you're not telling good stories. That's it. And it's taken me a while to fully understand this in terms of the industry, because I always thought a Marvel Comics editor should be the guardian of the IP and be able to see the forest for the trees. I think you have a lot of mid-talented editors. And again, being an editor is a talent. Being a good book editor, being a good comic book editor, being a good film editor, that is a talent in of itself. You don't have many talented editors working at Marvel. They'll just accept a pitch from a writer. They don't know the continuity. Neither the writer nor the editor know the continuity. You do have a proofreading, fact-checking arm, but stuff always slips through the crack magically, right? You just don't have editors who are like, hey, wait a minute, I see potential in this pitch. However, here's my red pen. Let me mark it all up. Go back to the drawing board. I'm sorry. There's the one thing I'm going to tell you about the X books that I, as a reader, have intuitively picked up is that the majority of folks working on the X books right now, I don't think they're as diehard fans as me and other people and some other talent, out there. I think back in the day, you saw that the talent loved these characters so much. And yeah, maybe they got a couple things wrong here and there. Maybe they didn't read every single issue like a neurotic fan. However, they had a genuine passion for these characters, whether it was in the art or in the lettering or the writing itself or the editing, wanting to tell a big, grand, epic story. That's gone. I mean, it starts at the top. Tom Brevoort, You can just tell he does not care about the X-Men. And that's just my opinion there. But I'm telling you, intuitively, I've picked up that the majority of folks just do not care about the X books they're working on. It's the lack of TLC. It's a lack of love in the details. That's it. If you want my opinion, you don't have to move anyone anywhere. Everyone can work remote if they wanted to in today's age. But I think you just have to hire good book editors, good comic book editors who want to tell really good, interesting stories. You have to get readers like myself and other folks coming back to the books. Again, Messiah Complex was published weekly, and I couldn't wait for that next issue to come out. I was reading during Ivy X. Oh my God, Dawn of X at the beginning of the Krakoan age. Hoxpox. Do you remember when Hoxpox came out in fall 2019? I thought I was going to lose my mind. I literally would be trembling as I got the next issue because I had to know what was happening next with Moira and Nimrod and Krakoa. I mean, again, it was just, you created good hype. That is what you need to do. You don't need to uproot anything. You don't need to do a manga division. You just need to be telling some good stories. Anyways, Familia, leave your thoughts below. Hit us up at Power of X-Men on Instagram. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you guys later.